All right, thank you, Alan, and welcome everyone, all the attendees watching this. Sorry I could not be there live. I had a scheduling conflict, but I wanted to, Alan and I had talked, and we still wanted to have my presentation recorded ahead of time so that I could still give my opinion, my viewpoint on APIs and where this industry is going. What I'll be sharing with you today is a presentation that I did at a conference called Enterprise Connect down in Orlando, Florida, and this was earlier this year. All right. Again, my name is Justin Haefner. I'm a senior principal IT technologist with the company Medtronic. I have about 15 years experience in the industry, but I am a recent convert, a programming convert. So I've recently got into doing programming. Only within the last 6 or so years have I decided that this is now for me. I will be doing this as a part of my job and as a way to better my job. I won't spend a lot of time on what an API is. Everyone is pretty familiar with it, but why do I care and how do I start to learn it is really about what my presentation is about. About 5 years ago, from my experience, is when things started to change in the industry. Before 5 years, when a vendor said that they had an API for something, it was a way to almost shut down the conversation. They were talking to application owners, infrastructure owners that were not programmers, we were not developers. And when we had a feature request for something that we needed added to their roadmap for their next release, they would go into a spiel about their API and how that was how you could solve the problem, knowing full well that our team had no developers. And so it was really just a way to push the ball into our court, and it won't make the roadmap because it's our fault that we don't have a developer. That has completely changed today and over the last handful of years. Now vendors are coming in leading with their APIs as a sales tactic. And there's a variety of reasons of why they're doing that. But really it should be eye-opening to application owners, infrastructure owners, that this is the reality, that using an API to get your job done, even writing some script or writing your own programs, is the wave of the future. It is how we need to get things done efficiently today. Why is this happening to me? The reason this slide is here is that a lot of people in the infrastructure and application owner side of things doesn't want to learn how to program. They fear this change. A lot of them went into the industry because they didn't want to program. So they were interested in IT, but they didn't want to write code. So they went into network, they went into UC, even server and storage. Everything today is changing in those realms. So it's not only UC that's changing, the whole gamut is changing, and we're all being asked to learn how to automate, write scripts, write code, be able to read an API documentation, and do things faster with less, right? This shouldn't be that scary for us, as especially just focusing on telecom application owners, right? So we've always been learning. At first, there was a lot of different things that we had to know with running a PBX. Then we started putting telephony on Ethernet, so we had to learn a whole new set of things. Now today, we have just another iteration. We have another thing that we have to learn. We have a new set of tools that we have to use to get our job done. But one is not a replacement for the other. And so this is more of like building on top of each other. You're still going to leverage all of your knowledge on why the application runs the way it does, why you need Erlang calculations, why that SS7 error code came back the way that it did. And as you can see, as a joke, regular expression, you're never going to get rid of it. It's going to be there to solve the nitty gritty time and time again. So there is something called imposter syndrome. You may have heard of it, you may not have, but I found this picture to be pretty telling. And that is that you might feel as a new developer coming in or learning how to write your own script coming in that you know very little and everyone else knows everything that you know and more. So in this example on the left, you know is a subset of what Bruno knows, which is a subset of what someone else knows. The reality is closer to what was on the right. And this is a good slide that has resonated with my teams on fighting kind of this imposter syndrome. Everyone brings to the table something very important and valuable. Even if you don't write code, you are coming to the table with institutional knowledge, historical knowledge, and application knowledge. So you know why that widget is there, and you have spent hours working with it, and you wish it were better with X, Y, and Z feature. You might be in a conversation with a developer that can make that happen for you. So it's not that they're more powerful than you. You have a dependent relationship on each other. That developer needs you to say what is wrong and what you need fixed and why, and then they will do the actual work. They can actually make that happen for you. But again, this imposter syndrome, I've seen incredibly smart people shy away from entering into this field because they were the expert and now they feel like they are not, when in actuality you are just leveraging someone else to get to your expertise and to solve real problems. So where do I start? This is really kind of my story a little bit. I started automating something that I didn't really want to do. I was faced with the challenge of going through telecom invoices monthly. And we needed to make decisions on call routing. What would be the most efficient way? What would be the most cost-effective way? And I didn't want to make these invoices were delivered in Excel format. I saw this as an opportunity, I guess is the best way to say it, as an opportunity to learn programming. The industry was telling me I needed to learn. This was a great use case for me to automate something that I didn't want to do every month. And so what I did was I wrote a Python script that could loop through all of these invoices, consolidate them into a view that I could then report out. And so that was my first dip in. Again, you need a little bit of management support on this. It took me a long time to learn. So I needed a long runway. But as soon as I got my feet off the ground on learning it and automating it, I was able to realize value very quickly. I could articulate with my management where we needed to make important decisions so that we could have the best cost save advantages. Again, this is my example, but each one of us will have something that we know we don't want to do and we could automate it better or automate it to make it better. And that's where I think, and not what I've been telling people, is that's where you start. Start with something that is real to you and you have a real burning reason to learn a new technology to help that out. The next in your journey is you'll bounce out to an API. So you'll quickly learn that in your writing your first automation script or your first Python script, there might be a library or an API that can do something very quickly that you've written a whole page in script about. And so the next evolution is going to an API to solve something faster. And I think that's really, the real drive of API in general, right? Is to leverage a tool that's not yours or, somebody else's, that's available via API. They've made that process available to you. And by passing it some information, and it'll do some hard work that you didn't have to write, and it'll return the solution back to you. So again, that's kind of my evolution of start with creating something, then use an API to even make it simpler and faster. Last is doing that data analysis to actually provide value. So this is how I've become fluent in what I need to get done, is that I've automated something, I've used an API to even make it more relevant and better. And now I take all of that data and I am able to display it and make concrete decisions that have impact, have financial impact on that data. And doing this, getting good at this kind of cycle, these changes, these things, you're able to make very complicated decisions quickly because you're parsing through all of this data and you're finding it. So again, that's really where I see programmability, APIs, you know, people that are subject matter experts, the running an application and running infrastructure. There's so much data there that you could be leveraging to make better decisions. Another part of learning this is, I feel, is doing some organizational hackathons, joining some internal and external organizations as well. So an internal hackathon, if your company doesn't already have one, they're a great way to build a community around this movement of enterprises adopting programmability, diving in and changing how we do work. Here you can see I just have some tips, what to do, what not to do. Really the biggest part, get some upper management buy-in, do it during business hours, and make it fun. External hackathons, I will say that I've attended 2 TAD hacks, and they're the mini ones that are attached to the Enterprise Connect conference in Orlando. And these are some of the things that I've learned about because I've joined those, how inclusive they are. Bringing people, again, I touched on it earlier, bringing people of all sorts of skill sets. Ones that have never written a line of code but have expertise, to full-fledged developers that have never heard of your application. Join those 2 powers, and it's amazing what you can watch happen if everyone is on the same page and excited about learning something new and working together. The collaboration between those different types of skill sets is amazing to see. What's another thing is, and you might not think of this as in a hackathon, but the ability to teach the fundamentals of programming, because it's so fast, you have to set your goal and you have to sprint to be able to present something on that last day. And that's really the goal, is you have to be able to present something. Even if it didn't work, you must present something. And it is teaching some fundamentals about just, DevOps is calling it an MVP, a minimal viable product, right? And that's really what a hackathon is at its core, is making something so fast and so applicable to your goal that others see the story that you're trying to paint and see the thing that you're trying to accomplish. If you're able to do that and other people are able to see your vision, then you've accomplished what you set out to do. And so it's a great learning opportunity, these hackathons. This is where I see the future of IT going. And there's a lot of misconceptions out there, but automation is really the prize inside corporate IT and IT in general, creating effectiveness and efficiencies with processes. We're all told to do more with less, but infrastructure hasn't had as many challenges as, let's say, web developers in the past. All the tools that web development and core development have had, those are now they're spilling into infrastructure because of the efficiencies that they've built. So we as infrastructure and application owners are now having to learn things that these core developers have made, get all sorts of tools that they have. We now have to learn. It isn't to say that everyone should become a developer, though. So this is kind of the heart of this slide, is that you have your expertise, and that is you are the subject matter expert. You own an application, you own some infrastructure. You should be able to speak the same language as a developer, be able to look at their code and relatively figure out what it is that they're doing, and maybe even be able to speak to the logic behind what they've done. Be able to read an API document on your application and make suggestions. This is the sweet spot that I say, is that what we used to be is someone that hated code. The other side of that paradigm is becoming a full-fledged developer and not owning an application at all. The sweet spot is somewhere in between, and everyone's going to level set themselves. But you need to be able to work directly with a developer. This is my opinion. Work directly with a developer so that you can leverage them effectively, because they don't know your application like you do. They might be able to read an API document, but they don't know some of the intricacies, the gotchas, that you need to do this before this. If the document didn't list out the dependencies first, they might be spending half a day, 2 days trying to get the sequencing right. When you've been doing it for years, you know that you must create this first, then this, then this. And so those are the things that you take for granted. That knowledge in your head, you take for granted. That developer knows nothing of your application. The partnership between the two is really where an enterprise, any business, will see the fruits of that labor. Again, I talked about some of the mistaken assumptions. We don't need to all become developers. We just need to become comfortable working in that arena. Developers are not interested in owning applications. That's not what they like to do. So they're not going to start owning PBXs. And our business units, again, speaking from an enterprise, business units are where really the money is made. They need to get to their solutions fast, and waiting for corporate IT has become something that isn't tolerated anymore. And so that's where these bouncing out to an API service is really showing its sweet spot. And that's where corporate IT, if you become knowledgeable in this stuff and you can help your business unit use these services, that's really where you see your benefit. And a couple of slides here on just how corporate is becoming more into this realm, into being a partner in this API movement. Medtronic has made an API broker team, and so APIs internally need to go through here so they can be secure, they can be monitored, they can have authentication. We've hosted internal hackathons, dev jams as they're called here. They've created slideware on why being a developer in the company is important, where it's going to go, what tools you need to use to be effective. Just kind of going quickly here. Internally we have slideware that talks about how important APIs will be in the future. And again, there's another group that we've created a user group as well. So just a grassroots user group of doing automation and picking people up inside the corporate IT that might not know all the tools. And so we can have a Kubernetes expert, we can have a Git expert, and we can pick people up and give them the tools that they need to do their jobs better. And so again, these are just some internal slides on how we are making this group more effective. And Alan, that's all I had.
That was excellent. Just a really great explanation of a shift I see in so many corporations in terms of the importance and consumption of APIs. For the sake of time, I'm just going to jump straight into some questions just to get your views. I'm not just asking, as Justin, just, not asking anything specific to your day job, but what do you think some of the problems, for example, collaboration or unified communications APIs can help enterprises solve?
Yeah, so enterprises need to be able to, especially those business units, right? Those business units need to get something out into a customer, or at least test something out very, very quickly. And contact to customers is of utmost importance right now. Everyone wants to feel connected to the service that they get. And so having corporate IT expertise help lead a business unit through navigate through all of the different vendors out there and services out there. You've become more of a steward and also more of a broker, and so you're really helping your business unit be, if you can speak the language, look at the service, and then articulate that back to the business unit.
That's an excellent point. Then another question. There's a lot of APIs. You point out you have an internal broker. I'm just interested in your view on the level of abstraction, because we've got like plain vanilla SMS APIs.
Mm-hmm.
We've then got APIs that maybe aggregate SMS, IP messaging. So it's sort of like a broader view. And then, of course, you've got the APIs on top of the enterprise applications you're using today, whether it be your CRM platform, collaboration APIs. Interested in your view around, what do you think is becoming more important to the enterprise, the plain vanilla, the more sort of APIs on the services, or all of the above?
It's really the default answer, and maybe even a cop out, is that all of the above, right? So it's going to be a use case,
Yeah.
and it's going to take somebody that has confidence and has expertise to take the use case from the business unit. And again, we all know that, right? A customer comes in, corporate IT sees our business units as our customers, and they're going to come in and they're going to say, I need this. Well, if you just took them at their word, and you pointed them to the best vendor that you thought, all of a sudden the requirements start spilling out that you had never even heard of before. So it's going to be your job to boil that down, to really get into the detail, and then you'll be able to really get to what is it that you're trying to solve, and then you'll be a partner with them. You'll be looked at as an asset, as an expert, and you'll be able to guide them into which solution works best. Just a point solution in time. And another thought that I have is that being that broker for the whole enterprise, you'll actually be able to guide them and give them experience and even give them opinion on, well, this business unit solved it with this, and then if we increase that business, maybe we can get better pricing or stuff like that. So having somebody that can be have that knowledge internally. Each business unit doesn't talk to each other, right? So you'll be able to drive efficiencies.
Perfect. That's excellent answer. And then just wrapping up, as we see this sort of shift to cloud-based providers for a lot of enterprise communications, just interested in your perspective on, will the big enterprises continue to buy from the Microsoft, Cisco's, or do you see, new providers coming out on the market?
Yeah, so this is pretty interesting. What I think of is that horizon for those big, those behemoths, right? Those incumbents. That horizon is looking a little bit less bright, right? So for your true blue desktop phone, all those kind of things, and then in the short term, they're not going to change.
Yeah.
But in the long term, and for the business units, again, that are trying to do something else, maybe a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, a little cheaper, a little lower cost to entry, is really where you're going to see those incumbents go away and the door open up to the newer telecom providers, the ones that will offer an API to do the service instead of here's a server and things like that. So that's really where I see the short-term horizon. They're probably still there for the time being, but they're being disrupted in the 5-year time frame.
Perfect. This is excellent, Justin. Again, thanks so much for giving us some of your time and providing these excellent insights and understanding as an enterprise how you're consuming these APIs, but also your focus on all your business units, which are your customers in delivering your solutions. So again, thanks so much, Justin.
No problem. Thank you.